Hi guys, it's Steph from IDRIVEACLASSIC and today I'm back. Loads of you tell me how much you love the hot hatches of the 80s, you tell me how much you love Ford, so I've meshed it all together and we've got this absolutely amazing Ford Fiesta MK1 XR2 and it is superb. It's a beautiful car, it's not been madly modified, it's not got loads of bits jammed on it, it's not been bodged to high heaven. In fact, it's a really good example for us to take out in 2020. So in today's video, we're going to have a look around the outside. We'll come inside and we'll have a look through all the dash. We'll talk through some of the bits. We even found a little book in the glove box, which I'm going to show you. And then we're going to take the car out for a drive and we'll see what it sounds like. Because it's got a 1.6 under the bonnet. It was supposedly up against the Metro in terms of hot hatches and smaller cars of the 80s. So we're going to find out today, is this overrated or is it just as cool as everybody says it is? Let's go and find out.
Today we're having a look around the fantastic Ford Fiesta MK1 XR2. Now the Ford Fiesta is a name which is recognised worldwide because it's been in use since 1976 and it's now into its 7th generation with a car so far removed in looks and technology from the car that you see in the video today. It's kind of hard to believe that this humble car was the beginning for the Fiesta, which is one of the best-selling marques under Ford. And can you believe they've sold over 16 million since 1976? And it's only been picked to bestseller in the Ford, well, within Ford, by the Skool and the F Series. Now, the Fiesta was an interesting car because it launched in 1976 into a bit of a world of newness because the Super Mini and the Super Mini era had kind of just landed and manufacturers wanted to create a car which buyers would choose, and I think they were everyone was kind of vying for being market share leader. Now I know there's going to be people at home that are going to say, well Steph, look, the Fiesta launched in 1977 and yeah, in the UK it did, but actually, and some people don't know this, that it was available beforehand in Valencia in Spain from 1976. And part of the reason was because, as many of you will know, there were lots of factory strikes in the 70s and the Valencia factory was actually a lot more stable. So they said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to start here and we're going to start making the cars here. So from January 1977, it was available in the UK, and Ford really embraced that newness and that new market with real confidence because it was the first front-wheel drive Ford available in the UK, and it was only the second hatchback Super Mini being built in the UK as well. So it was really new ground. Now, the Mark I was available as a 3-door hatchback and a 3-door van with trim and spec levels. So these will be familiar to Ford fans. You could have got base, popular, popular plus, L, GL, Gear and S trim, although it is worth noting that the GL wasn't available until 1979, 1980 time. And guess what? In the UK, we loved it almost instantly. And when you think about the buying population of that time in the 70s and the 80s, it was quite a conservative market. So to win in that sort of market, especially with a manufacturer that people are like, oh, it's not British, was a really big thing. So from launch in 1977, it became the UK's best Super Mini, best-selling Super Mini by 1978. And by 1980, over 1 million Fiestas had been sold. And by 1982, that figure had jumped from 1 to 2 million, which is massive. And although it's kind of interesting to note all these things, another thing which a lot of people never talk about is that the Ford Fiesta was actually part of the Motability Scheme, which launched in 1978. So what is the Motability Scheme? If you're watching from abroad, if you're disabled or if you need in use of a car, you can basically get a car unsubsidised through this scheme. It's fantastic. It means that everybody has got access to a car, and it's great for people that live in rural communities or who need a car to get about. Now, the Motability Scheme wasn't kind of a brand new thing because prior to this, cars would have been issued to disabled citizens in the UK under the Ministry of Health. And in 1968, so 10 years prior, you would have been given something like a Morris Minor. And I know this to be true because my own Morris Minor was actually issued under the Ministry of Health scheme. So if you think about those customers alone, take everybody else out that buying market, it must have been an absolutely huge and unimaginable upgrade to go from a car designed in the 40s to a car which boasted everything from twin-speed wipers, hazard lights, and a dash setup which seemed light years ahead. So if you just think about where that customer's journey had gone in the space of those 10 years. Now, I'm not discrediting the wonderful Morris Minor. I love them. It's one of my favourites, but I think it's just really interesting to include this when we talk about the MK1 Fiesta. Now, at launch, the Fiesta offered an attractive package for buyers. So you got a fully synchro-mesh gearbox with a 4-speed manual option, 12-inch wheels, a top speed of 81 miles per hour with the ability to do 0 to 60 in just under 20 seconds. And also the MPG was pretty good as well, because you got, and obviously manufacturers' claims are always hyped up a little bit, but let's go with it anyway. They advertised an MPG of 41.5 miles per gallon. Now, at launch, you could have got a 950 or an 1100 engine, and the 1.3 was added later. But Ford had a trick up their sleeve, and in 1980, the XR2, car you see before us here today, was released. So the XR2 offered the customer, with a taste for the fast lane, something a little bit different. You got a 1.6 litre engine, and you could forget waiting 20 seconds to reach 60. The XR2 would take you from 0 to 60 in 9.3 seconds and had a top speed of 105 miles per hour, which is ridiculous, and it's amazing at the same time. And it was seen as the dream car for boy racers everywhere. Plus, with those round headlights that you see on the car today, it separates it from the rest of the MK1 lineup. So if somebody saw your XR2 in their rearview mirror, they knew you weren't just any MK1. They knew you were MK1 XR2. And Ford really knew who they were marketing to as well. And in fact, if you look at old Ford marketing campaigns, they're absolutely amazing. And they went out into the advertising world with confidence, and they sold the car under the strapline of being highly tuned, not highly strung. And whilst they led with the message around performance, it came with a secondary message too, reliability. And that kind of meant something, because in the 1970s and into the early 80s, buyers had become fatigued with manufacturers who offered varying qualities of build, endless niggles. And I'm not just digging at BL, because plenty of manufacturers were guilty of this. And as the car buyer emerged from the world of strikes and breakdowns on newer models, the stuff that they weren't really expecting, they were searching for a car which offered quality and reliable motoring at a sensible price. Now, a lot of people call old Ford Dagenham dustbins, which I think is really unfair. The new generation of Fords, these Fords, started to see the company buy more favour with the general public and the conservative buyer as well, because there was a time when many of these buyers would only go for a British car, and they saw their market share grow. Plus, they were streets ahead of the competition, and with the MK2 Fiesta coming to market in 1983, and if you think about it, they'd issued many different revisions. It meant that customers like competitors, even like the Polo, the Renault 5, the Metro, the Peugeot 205, had massive catching up to do, because they not only had to convince people their new car was amazing, they also had to claw back market share too. So it's perhaps no surprise that the Metro launched in 1980 with a campaign header, "The British car to beat the world," and an advert declaring war on other super mini manufacturers who, well, just weren't British. Now, unusually, with one of these videos that I do, it ends with a bit of a sob story where I go, oh, well, the company closed here, or the model finished off the mark. But with the Fiesta, it's all good news, because the car was such a success that after the MK2 was launched in 1983, they carried on. And in 2020, at the time of producing this video, the Fiesta is still a well-known and well-loved car. And although it's changed hugely from the MK1 that we see here today, the newer cars are still great. They offer up to 72 miles per gallon, although I'd rather enjoy a classic and less of an MPG. But XR2 owners, fear not, because guess what? Your speed hasn't actually really improved that much, because the Fiesta on the market today, just standard, they reckon it only can get 0 to 62 in 9 seconds. So your 9.3 offers you the ability, if you're quick off the lights, to beat that factory fresh Fiesta you're racing against. Now, before we have a look at the interior, I guess one of the things that people would ask about was, what does XR2 actually stand for? Now, unlike the Metro ARX from last summer's test, which was given the name due to being the Austin Rover crossover model, a bit of internet sleuthing told me that whilst many think that XR stands for experimental research, it was just actually a Ford internal code which they hung on to, because, well, sounds kind of cool, doesn't it?
Now I want to show you guys the dash, so come on in. Now we start over here, we've got our glove box. Now this is something that you don't get in every 80s car. Jill, I'm looking at you. And look at how much space you've got inside. We've got our lamp covers in there. We've got a book, which I can't wait to show you. And we've got some cassette tapes as well. So what have we got? We've got Queen live at Wembley, 86. Not my favourite, but a very in-keeping choice of the car. And we've also got the 60s mix, a bit of a throwback there. Now that shuts quite nicely, although it does feel a bit flimsy, but all glove boxes of that era generally do. Now, something I was told by Connor, Ian's son, is that something that a lot of people notice nowadays is that the dashes have cracks like this one. Now, this isn't unique to this car. I have seen it on other cars. I've seen it on a lot of Montegos, actually, and a lot of these kind of foamy, moulded dashes that you got from that era. Now, we're going to start over here as well, because I've totally forgot to tell you. So when we were talking about space, we've missed the door pockets. Door pockets are fantastic on this. As you'd expect, you've got your door pull there, and you've got your window winder there. So nice. But again, as you can see, as we look round, everything feels quite sturdy. So, I mean, even right down to things like these heater controls, you don't feel like you're about to break them off. I think sometimes with 80s cars, these bits and pieces can be very flimsy, they can be very brittle, especially by this point, and they can almost feel like they're about to snap off in your hand. And again, with our ashtray, again, it's just that, I don't know, it just feels very substantial. It doesn't feel like it's built to fall apart at the first hurdle. We've got our hazard warning light switch. We've got our fogs there. And again, even these switches, they don't feel like they're going to crack off in my hand. They feel very kind of, that's just for your heater, that's just your fan speed. We've got a blanking plate over here. It doesn't look too out of place, really. And over here, we've got our cigarette lighter, or cigar lighter, as some people like to call them. Now, over here, this is where the car has a few really underrated features and benefits, in that it's got a rear wiper. And again, I like this yellow that you can see, well, yellowy orange that you can see, so you can instantly tell if it's on. It's a real, they're nice switches actually, really substantial. And then over here we've got the radio. So when we're looking through the book, which I'm going to show you in a minute, you'll be able to see this is actually featured in the little aftermarket. So it did like a little accessories brochure, which but as you can see here, and again, you've got your medium and your long wave. So that's old people FM to all the young people watching. And then down here, you've got a coin slot, so you can put all your coins in. It's one of those zany little 80s features. And again, down here, we've got even more space to be putting tapes or sweet wrappers, or those little tins of travel sweets that old people love, old people and me. And then we come up to here. So look, it's a car of this age. There's always little bits that need sorting out. So this is just something that will need to be replaced at some point. This is your interior light, and this is your clock as well. So I'm just going to put on the dash so you can see that. So you can see there, you've got your numbers on there. It's telling the right time. And of course, a magic tree, because faux orange are no longer in production. And let's now have a little talk through the dials on the dash. So if we come over, so you'll be able to see, so we come up, we've got our miles per hour over here with a trip clock, fantastic. The temperature gauge and the petrol, so you'll be able to see, well, fuel gauge. And then we come across and we go over to the rev counter as well. And that's as you'd expect. And then as you come into the centre, we've got the warning lights as well. So it's all pretty much as you would expect. However, there's one thing I haven't shown you, and that's the 3 stalks over here. You've got your horn push, and then you've got your indicators. And again, when I talk about the substantial plastic, although this is a bit, it doesn't feel as a unit like it's about to break off in my hand. I do expect a little bit of tinniness, but not some of it. And then as we pull it towards us, we're flashing the other drivers, which I don't think you're supposed to do. And then over on this side, you've got the 2 stalks, which I'm loath to say a bad thing about this car because I'm really enjoying it so far, but I do find this a bit weird and I don't know how I'm going to get on with it. So over here we've got, towards the back, we've got our lights, that's slightly offset. So obviously half and all the way up, your sides and your full lights. And then over here to your front, so your front one, you've got your wipers. So come on, so you've got your double speed there. Come back down into that neutral position and you go down. So you can see it's indicated on here and you go down and that takes you into intermittent wiping, which is actually a godsend when the rain isn't too heavy, but it's too much to keep switching it on and off. And it's something that you don't have in your Metro. Now we've talked through the dash and I hope you'll agree, it's a really well laid out car. Everything's very easy to get to, apart from I can't reach the glove box when I'm driving, but I mean, why should you be able to? The steering wheel feels very substantial, again, just like the rest of the plastic around the car. It's got a real nice weighty feel to it. It feels well made. It feels, before we've even driven off in it, it feels like a thoughtfully put together car. It doesn't feel slapdash, it doesn't feel tinny, and it feels like it can really take a good thrashing. So before we head off, I think we'll talk through the gearbox for you and then we'll start the car up. Now let's talk through the gears. So we go up into first, we go down into second over there, come back into neutral, show you where that is, go up into third, we come down into fourth, we come across, and we go up into reverse. So all in all, actually, it's a really, really nice gearbox. It doesn't feel massively kind of thrashed about. It doesn't feel like it's going to be cracking into gears. We've got synchro mesh on all our gears, which is obviously a godsend because your earlier cars, some of them have no synchro on any gear at all, and some of them have no synchro on first. So it's nice to have, sometimes it is nice to have a few modern luxuries, I can't lie. So I think it's hard time we started this car up. Now I want to start this car up, so we push the key in, we turn it. You can see we've got our lights coming on there. We'll just check that we're in neutral. I'm going to wind down that window so you can get a better feel for what that 1.6 sounds like. Needless to say, I'm not doing this on a cold engine, I wouldn't dare.
And from the rear, before we head for a drive, I just wanted to show you a booklet I found in the glove box. Now before we head off on our drive and all the rest of it, I just quickly wanted to show you what I found in the glove box. So basically there's a little booklet of all these different bits and pieces, and I absolutely love this one. Look, it's actually Ford accessories. So I'm going to flip that around and show you. So you've got all your accessories. It's not just for any Ford, it's for your Ford Fiesta. So you've got everything in the front. So if you see there, it just kind of lays it all out. This is really the Fiesta owner's dream. You've got everything over here from your radios. So we'll keep flicking through. And in fact, I even spotted the radio that's in this car actually. It's one of those. My attention to detail is fantastic, as you can see. And we'll flick through. And then you've just got some various other bits. So you've got the mirrors, you've got everything. There's even a roof rack, which I think is fantastic. Just going to flick through, and the snow chains as well, ridiculous. But I suppose in certain countries we'd have needed that. So just flicking through. Basically, it was like, you're a Fiesta owner, here's living the dream, and here's your book as well. So I just wanted to show you a little bit about this really, because I really love old booklets, old manufacturing stuff, and I thought you'd like it too. So just quick flick through there and show you that. And then let's crack on, because we've got loads to see on this car, and I feel like I could sit here all day, me pointing at things. I feel like I could literally just sit here all day and chat to you about this car, because it's absolutely amazing, as is some of the fashion in the back of this booklet. Does anyone know where I can buy one of these jackets? You guys are probably wondering what this car's like to drive, so what we're going to do is, and remember that we can get from 0 to 60 in 10.1 seconds, not that we're going to test that. We're going to go up through the gears so you can hear the gear change, and then I'm going to tell you what it's like as we drive through a few villages. So let's head off in first, so you'll get me being quiet for a minute.
I think the hardest thing about driving this car is trying to stick to the speed limit, because you've got that 1.6 engine under the bonnet, and I just feel like it's almost like an excitable toddler. It's just continually trying to get me to push it further and further. And with these windy roads, it's very hard not to really go for it. However, we're coming up to a national speed limit, so just wanted to show you what it's like. So bear in mind, we're now sitting at 30 and 4th. I'm going to put my foot down. And you can feel that even in 4th, we can feel it as we pull away, that it's still got that power. We're not kind of topping out, it's not feeble, and it feels like a really sturdily built car as well. So it reminds me a little bit of the Mark II Golf actually, and that felt a bit like this, in that you actually felt quite safe inside. It didn't feel tinny, it didn't feel rattly, and as you can probably hear as we drive along, we're not actually, like, I'm not thrashing it to be fair, but it's not full of knocks, rattles, bangs, clatters. Like a lot of these 80s cars, 70s cars actually, you can hear a bit of a dash rattle. Whereas in this, we're not hearing loads of clattering and all the rest of it. And whilst that engine is, yeah, it's incredibly loud, we can still have a really nice conversation as we drive along. So again, I'm just going to put my foot down. Oh, this is so good. This is so nice to drive. And also these roads are lovely as well, which is rare for an IDRIVEACLASSIC test. So we're coming up to 50 there. And I think something else to mention as well is that the brakes on this are actually really good, which you'd want them to be, because honestly, does anybody drive one of these things slowly? Absolutely. Oh, it's just brilliant. Now you've probably noticed that the camera is a little bit bumpier today, and that's because this car, again, it's that excitable toddler feel. It is very bouncy, and also we've got Josh filming in the back seat, and there are no seat belts, so he can't even secure himself in. So as I whip round these corners, he's been whipped around like many poor children in the 1980s and 1990s would have been whipped around on those back seats. Now, I guess one of the things that people are going to ask me is, this pitched up against, a sportier Metro, what do you prefer? Well, as you know, the next video we've got coming out, we're going to be taking out the Metro. But I guess the one thing that really sits in this car's favour is that A, I am going to be honest, it does feel a lot sturdier, it does feel a lot better built, and B, you've got the bigger engine sizes. I mean, if you're going to say that a car's dead sporty, you want to be going for, a lot of people equate that to that bigger engine, and with this 1.6, there is no way that anybody could argue that you wouldn't be able to keep up with modern traffic, that you wouldn't be able to use this comfortably as a commuter car, because honestly, these seats are dead comfortable, and it just feels a little bit safer, and it's got a little bit more protection than some of the other 80s cars, unless you're sat in the back seat, of course, then you're just rolling around like an old egg in an egg box with no support at all. But anyway, it's been a great test. I realised that my driving section's very brief today, but I think the car really spoke for itself before we'd even gone out. It's got that styling, which I think is absolutely superb. It's got a real solid feel to it, which I feel like I'm probably very much struggling to convey in the video, but it's a sturdy car, it's a fast car, and overall that, it's stylish as well. It's just a really nice all-rounder. I think people always say to me, Steph, you don't talk about the bits you don't like. Well, if you ask me the bits I don't like on this car, it's very silly, the bits that I don't like. I don't like the fact that the clock is up here. For some reason that really annoys me. I prefer my clocks to be down here on your dash. And as well, as you probably noticed, the fuel filler cap when we were going around the outside, and I don't know, I would have given it like a little, those little flaps to cover it, but look, it's pure preference. Overall, I really struggle to find bad things to say about this car, because it is such an exceptional car. It drives well, it looks cool in the car park, and do I think it's worth the money? I'm going to go out and say yes, I do actually, because They're cars that continue to go up in value. They gain more and more cult status every year, and you've got a good network as well, whether that's the unofficial clubs and groups on Facebook, or whether that's the official clubs as well, because as we saw when we were looking through the book, there's an RS club. So it's great. It's got a whole community with it. It's a cool car, and you know, there are still people out there that are helping you get bits and pieces for it. So I think the only downside is it's probably be the most likely to be nicked in the car park. So I really hope you've enjoyed the video. It's been a marvellous sunshine to take you out in, which always makes filming hazardous, but always makes the driving section so much more of a pleasure. So I hope wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe, you're looking after your family, and until next time, take care and drive safely.